Today on Sagittarian Matters, queer animals, parthenogenesis, elephant seal gender roles, and more, as we discuss poking the squid, what we can learn from animal sex with Perrin Roosevelt Ireland. Stay tuned.
Sagittarian Matters, Sagittarian Matters, what's the matter with you? Sagittarian Matters.
Perrin Roosevelt Ireland is an artist and environmentalist. For a decade, she worked at the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, ultimately as deputy to the executive director. Her artwork has been published in Discover, Nature, Scientific American, and The Rumpus. She serves on the board of the Roosevelt Institute, was an inaugural artist in residence at the New York Aquarium, and is a Banff Graphic Novel Resident. Perrin lives in Brooklyn, New York, with her cats Ursula and Pudge, and her new book, Poking the Squid, What We Can Learn from Animal Sex, is out right now. Please enjoy my talk with friend to the show, Perrin Roosevelt Ireland. Perrin, George's Ireland. Perrin, welcome to Sagittarian Matters.
Nicole, it's a lifelong dream, as long as I knew about the podcast for that lifespan, to join you here.
What's your sign?
Sagittarius.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I sort of felt like it was meant to be.
How does it feel to be a Sagittarius right now?
One of the very Sagittarian things I'm told that I do is have absolutely no relationship to astrology. And if I tell people that, they're like, oh, that's so Sag.
I don't think of that as Sag. I think of it as Virgo, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
So I then am just sort of still trapped in the loop of like, okay, I guess I just am very Sagittarian. And then the way people react when I tell them I'm a Sag just makes me think everybody's jealous of us.
That's honestly true.
Right?
Why? Because they're like, oh, you just want to have fun and you're outgoing in the life of the
Yeah.
party?
Yeah, everything they
Must be
say, they're like, oh, a lot of big adventures and sort of passionate decisions. And I'm like, uh-huh. And they're mad about it. And it seems jealous.
Do you know what your other stuff is?
Yes, I had a friend once do my, what's it called? She did a reading. Yeah, she did my chart. Exactly. I am Capricorn. I think I'm double Capricorn. Otherwise.
Do you know that I am too?
Nicole.
That's why we actually get things done and travel.
Yes, exactly. On the road, I get things done.
This is incredible news. I've never met another Sagittarius with Capricorn moon and rising.
Uh-huh.
Everything's falling into place.
I agree.
Okay, Perrin, you're here on the occasion of your gorgeous book having been published. This book, for people who aren't watching on video, is called Poking the Squid, What We Can Learn from Animal Sex. We could learn a lot of really fucked up positions.
Ain't that the truth?
like becoming a physical part of another animal.
Yes.
As our way of having sex with it. Can you tell us about that animal? And then I have more places I want to go.
Yes. And I was actually wondering to myself just now, if I'm, celebrating queer animals for Pride, how would I categorize anglerfish as queer? Because what happens with anglerfish reproduction is that the females are, it's a term in science called sexual dimorphism. So this is when the sexes are very different sizes from each other. And anglerfish females are sometimes 40 times as large as anglerfish males. And anglerfish males are described as sort of like a little sack of sperm with eyes and a really good nose that's moving around at depth where only certain forms of light penetrate. There's actually a lot of light happening at depth, but it's different than light that we can see. And when they're babies, basically the males with these big eyes and these noses go and try to find a female anglerfish. And in some species, there will be many males with one female. In some, it's just a pair. But he nibbles into her abdomen and then, sort of emits this kind of like coagulate-y thing such that his face erodes and he basically like plugs into her blood vessels and her tissue. And he loses his eyes, he loses his nose, he really merges into her. So it's sort of lesbian.
And I was going to say, it feels very lesbian.
Yeah.
I know some
and-
lesbians that would be like, can you give me a guide to how to do this? Because it sounds perfect.
Exactly. Ye old U-Haul. So then it's believed that she has, like on the New York City subway, she would die immediately because she doesn't have some of the key immune cells that we have that sometimes lead to rejecting an organ transplant. And this is essentially like another individual that's organ transplanting on her, right? So her immune system just accepts this as the case. It accepts this kind of invasion, but it's believed that she can then maybe pull on doses of sperm when she wants to reproduce throughout the remainder of their lives. And when she perishes, so shall he or they. I mean, what can we really call it, right?
Right. Wow.
And people have said to me, lay people, as it were, have said to me, like, they're trans. They're this sort of changing of tissue, and the multisexness maybe makes people wonder, is it actually a he and she that are fused, or does it become something else?
Well, this brings up something for me. So, Perrin, my big stunt of the podcast is that I have a bunch of notes from working with you on a one-on-one basis over the course of many years as you were constructing this book. And as people can assume from this moment forward, Perrin has, like, all of my notes have notes about things that you're working on, and they're all too hot to handle. But something that I want to bring up really quick, since you just were talking about that, like, is this queer what anglerfish are doing? Is it trans? Like, what's happening when they become one and the sex changes? There was a part of our notes from a time when you were going to try to interview a group of scientists who had stated that gayness is the ancestral state.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this in honor of Pride?
I would love to. That's Monk et al. I believe 2019 is that paper.
Thanks a lot.
And that scientist has become a good buddy, Julia Monk. Other authors I've talked to that were on that paper include Ambika Kamath. I'm trying to think who else I chatted with. Max is on that paper, I think, and maybe Beans Veloci. Anyways, we'll have to fact check all of that. But the idea that they put forward is when we talk about same-sex sexual behavior in nature, in evolutionary biology, animals are often afforded only one kind of agency, as Ambika Kamath says in my book, which is quote unquote fitness, which is reproductive success. What an animal wants to do is pass down its genes, and it wants to reproduce, and it wants to consume enough food and live long enough to successfully do that. And so if animals are engaging in body boisterous, homoerotic lovemaking, presumably, according to evolutionary biologists, they're expending a lot of energy not doing what their main mission in life can and should be. And people outside of the biology academy, queer and feminist theorists, have been railing, as it were, against that for decades, really pushing back on this idea that ends up getting perpetuated in the evolutionary biology discourse, where they a lot of the papers about this end up looking a whole lot like they might be explaining away the gay. Like, oh, they meant to reproduce, but they accidentally just slipped a dick in the, it's like, oops, they like stumble and fall into same-sex sexual behavior, or they
they're confused.
Exactly. They're just confused. It's a phase. They're roommates. They went to camp together, etc. So Julia Monk and colleagues were sort of tired of seeing this refrain in evolutionary biology over and over again. And as Julia shares in the book, she identifies as bisexual. And so she also didn't understand why evolutionary biology kept talking about it as if it all can't be coexisting, which we see in so many examples across the animal queendom. But like, these animals are not, there are straight up gay animals. Like, there are rams that will only be interested in other male rams their entirety of their lives. And actually a pretty high percentage, like 6% of populations. But this group of scientists really wanted to put forward the idea of, instead of us taking all of this energy and all of these kind of homophobic sounding explanations to explain why same-sex sexual behavior evolved over and over again, because that's what was happening. Is it's like if you look at the tree of life, it's like gay, gay, gay keeps popping up over and over. And the scientists were like, why does it keep popping up? And they basically said, what if it's the ancestral state to mate with whoever you want who's around, to mate indiscriminately is what they would call it in science speak. And what if same-sex sexual behavior evolved out of that and is actually the more specialized way to reproduce? Because if you think of like an amoeba, early ancestral animal, they bump up against another amoeba and they're going to do a poke and a choke if they can, you know? But as animals specialize in
poke and a choke?
Yeah. As animals differentiate from there, I just love the idea of arguing like they actually evolved same-sex sexual. I mean, they evolved heterosexual behavior from same-sex sexual behavior. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And there's also so many animals in your book who reproduce without heterosexual sex.
There are tons, and I didn't even get into all of the examples that are so fun out there of entire populations of animals that are reproducing with what they call parthenogenesis. So it's predominantly, I think, actually only been witnessed in either multi-sexed animals that they can reproduce, they can self-fertilize, or in female animals that they will clone themselves. But yeah, it's really, and that's been a fun one too, because I tell so many stories about animals on the internet. The asexual community engages with my work and asks me for examples. And it's really fun to talk about all of these many million-year-old communities where that's the case.
Extraordinary.
Indeed it is.
Okay, Perrin, I'm going to do my stunt now.
Great.
I have a lot of notes for you.
Show me who I've been.
Well, the first thing I want to, so let's set the scene here.
Thank you.
You're a cartoonist, an illustrator, and a scientist. I am a cartoonist. You've taken some of my classes, and now we have this comics community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how else to describe it, but you and I have worked one-on-one as you were putting this book together. And so every time we met, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, I take notes.
Mm-hmm.
So here I am, Perrin Ireland, this is your life. The first thing I want to show you is the progress thermometer that you perhaps at different times had a case of like defiant disorder or somewhere you were like, I am not making a progress thermometer. But then we would talk and you'd be like, oh, I haven't done anything. And you had done like hundreds of pages and so much reading and so many interviews and so many drawings. So I just really wanted to reflect your progress. So I made one on my own.
I never did make one.
Well, you don't have to, because like your progress thermometer was so great. I had to add an extension onto the paper. Okay. These are notes. These are things I highlighted from different notes.
Okay, great.
These are just things that were on your to-do lists.
Okay.
Choose 15 sets of weird genitals.
Mm-hmm.
Vaginal trapdoors. Garage doors.
Got it.
Diversity is the rule.
Yes.
Monogamy question. This is from me to you. What's in it for humans? And then these are some questions that you were looking into. But how's the sex? And how do female animals feel about rape?
Mm-hmm.
How to note the stoicism of sea turtles.
Oh.
This part's important. And I think, let me say these three things and let me know if you have anything to say about them. The subplot you wanted to cling to that happens in your book is how we make science matters and is who we are. This is part that comes up in your book a lot, which is like science is never outside of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that briefly? Because I think that was a huge thing. You know, I'm not a scientist, lifelong animal lover in many different ways. And it really helped me frame and reframe. I don't know what.
Yeah.
I was learning alongside, you know, you were writing. So some of these things you already knew, some of these things you were learning along the way, but your ability to articulate them really helped me learn and put into perspective. Oh,
yeah.
About science and culture and how the norms of the day were inflecting what people were seeing.
Yes. And I've learned so much about this from the great feminist science and technology studies leaders, people like Donna Haraway, Banu Subramaniam, who I spend a lot of time with in the book, and people working today to ask critical questions of science like Beans Veloci, and people inside the sciences like Sam Sharp and Sarah Lipschutz, Julia Monk. I'm so lucky at the kind of community that I've sort of stumbled my way through to learn from. But I'll give an example that's actually not in the book that Donna Haraway talks about in an essay of hers that I love. The very first real experiment is when that guy did that air pump. I think his name is maybe Locke. He like maneuvered an air pump that showed something. This is, as I'm getting into this, I'm like, I'm really, this is really abstract.
What's an air pump? What does that mean?
The book about it is called Leviathan and the Air Pump.
Okay.
Let me look.
Okay.
Locke air pump. Let's see what it says. No, Leviathan and the Air Pump. We won't spend too much time on this. It's just such a good example. Okay. Yes, Boyle, the air pump experiments in the 1660s. Okay. So in this book, Leviathan and the Air Pump, which then Donna Haraway writes about, this guy Boyle does this. It's like this huge operated air pump. And I forget what they were proving, but it's important to us because it's the first scientific experiment that proceeds based on the scientific method. So the experiment happened in front of people who witnessed it. So the way that science works right now is you do the experiment and you have to be able to repeat it a certain number of times. So you have to have a sample size that's big enough and robust enough. And you write down for other people to see what your hypothesis was, how you tested it, what the methodology was, what the results were, and what your discussion is. And then you submit this to a peer-reviewed journal, and your peers in the sciences read that paper. And some of them will try to reproduce it. And if they can't, they will have critical questions for you about how you got the results you got. Some of them will write feedback and critique it. And then you resubmit it, and it'll get published and move into the world as a new advancement in some kind of methodology or understanding. But Boyle's experiment in the 1660s, so we're in the Enlightenment, is the first time an experiment happens where there are witnesses. They write down an account of what they did, what they found. They circulated it among peers. Everybody that was there signed off on it. And it gets presented maybe at the Royal Society. Maybe that didn't exist yet. Obviously, I don't know too much about the nuts and bolts here. But what interests me about this experiment is records indicate. So all of the people that signed off on the paper on the results were white, male, land-owning gentry. Slaves operated the pump, and women observed the experiment that day. And neither of them reviewed the results. None of their names are listed. They were not part of the circulation of the results. And Haraway talks about that as such a core example of like from the very first official scientific experiment. Who gets to have the objective gaze? Who gets to participate and make science? Whose perspective determines what we say we saw and what we agree we saw is being regulated by cultural norms and cultural views. Women's ovaries will shrink if they use their brains too much, and we can't have that. And slaves are not whole people at that time, right? And so they don't get to participate in the making of science. And every single incident that I encountered in learning about who it was that helped us learn more about animals, how difficult it was for them to pursue that research. People have been driven out of science. People have been mocked by their male peers, ignored by their male peers. I felt that I really learned over and over again that the closest we get to accurately seeing animals is when we have huge diversity in science. When we have people from different class, ethnic, gender, sexuality, and global backgrounds asking questions of animals, and those people are coming together, we have a shot at seeing animals clearly. Is that a good answer?
That's a great answer. I mean, I'm thinking about there's so much research, there's so many historical things that you kind of went back and were looking at in this where you're like,
Yeah.
well, the reporting on this seems to be going towards eugenics or monogamy, or like the way they're understanding what they're seeing is so inflected by their bias.
and their
Yeah.
privilege that like we can actually look at the exact same records through a different lens and it's really not holding up.
Yeah, completely. And I think that's what's cool about the way, especially these feminist theorists talk about science, is like, it doesn't mean that we can't attend to scientific results or take them seriously. It just means we need to look at them critically. So, you know, Ambika Kamath, this is her story to tell. She tells it, she told it to me. She was studying anole lizards. And they are a type of lizard that had been observed having male on male same-sex sexual behavior that had been ascribed to disputes over territory. Ambika Kamath is Southeast Asian. She identifies as being originally from a colonized place. And she has questions about how science is obsessed with territory and finds it really colonial. And so she was in the field studying anole lizards and she observed the same-sex sexual behavior, but she was like, I don't think they have territories. I see this differently than the guys that did this research the first time. And she published research showing anole lizards are having same-sex sexual behavior between males, not about territory, presumably because they like it. And that's what I find, the scientists that I think also in our generation of scientists, it's like people that have read some of the feminist theory about it and some of the queer theory about it. And so they're bringing that like feminist subjectivity or an interest in attending to their positionality into the way they're asking these questions of animals. Another really cool example that comes up in the book is Max Lambert and Melina Packer. Max Lambert published a paper in 2015 about whether chemicals from suburban lawns were trickling into ponds and making frogs develop altered genitalia than they would otherwise. And about 10 years later, he and Melina went back with like a critical, like anti-transphobia lens and looked at what he found, why he found it, why is like that kind of research on how chemicals change animals' bodies so obsessed with changing genitalia and not thinking more about other harms caused to animal bodies that also humans are having from these chemicals. And they like went through his paper and called himself out.
Cool.
It was so cool. And found they were like, actually, we found that this is pretty widespread for frogs to have variation in their genitalia. By the way, it also doesn't necessarily impact their reproductive lives. And the story is not directly linked to these chemicals. And we can be like a lot less transpanic about frog genitalia. But we also should be really concerned about cancer.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. It has nothing to do with my notes or anything.
What is it?
When the lizards outside of my house do push-ups, what's up with that?
I knew this once and it's gone now. What are the push-ups for?
I've read before that it's like, that it's territory to be like, this is my turf.
Yeah.
And of course, I am ascribing kind of a swole narrative onto them.
Yeah.
But it could also be like they're just trying to look tough. Or maybe they're trying to get air. I don't know. Like the tortoise, sometimes when she's anxious, she'll pump her arms.
I have like a respiratory question about it also. I wonder if it's a cooling function.
I think it might be a cooling function. I think I was thinking that because when I looked it up before, it was like cooling function or turf war. And I was like, maybe it's not a turf war. Back to my notes.
Yep.
Every terrestrial animal needs to take in gas and express waste.
Indeed.
A question from your to-do list. Can you ink monogamy in September? Elephant seals is how we teach hetero-Victorian ways we teach science.
Exactly right.
Can you?
That's a good example.
Give us some context for that?
Yeah. So,
and also, bees have a fourth sex. Okay.
What is that? Bees? Oh, yeah. That's a whole other thing. And that's a really fun one too, because, and you know what? You should read Beans Veloci's book. It's coming out. They changed the name of it. I got to read an early edition. It was called Binary Logic, and I think now it's called Sex Isn't Settled. But they are a historian of science at Penn, and they are the berries. I love them. The whole third part of my book is basically a love letter to Beans Veloci's mind. And they write a lot about bee sex and bee sex through time because it's a great historical record for our relationship to gender because people have been keeping bees for centuries and have been quite obsessed with the ones that are not having sex. Okay, I can't find elephant seals in the book, but so with elephant seals, Darwin, in his theory of sexual selection, so Darwin writes the theory of evolution. It's a fucking barn burner. It's a banger. It's a bestseller. People are obsessed. It literally kind of changes the world. And then he writes his Descent of Man in relation to sex. I always forget the name of what the sexual selection theory book is. But he writes this follow-up book that's doing a lot of things. And one of the things it's doing is putting forward his sexual selection theory, which is, in ways, really radical and really feminist because he gives female animals kind of like world-building power. He argues that basically female desire, female preference is what's shaping male bodies, male genitalia, male behavior, male performance. And he also puts forward some ideas that for me read as really dated of like, you know, males are fighting each other for the female. Females are a bit more coy. And he is the one that puts forward that there are size differences between males and females because males are fighting each other to get laid. And that the egg is a higher energetic investment for females to make. They invest more in young. And so they're more selective about who they're going to have sex with, which is where the choose your sex from Darwin's theory comes from. So my friend Kaya Tombak, who's a biologist, was like, you know what I notice? We've proven that mammals have sexual dimorphism over centuries since this theory came forward. That like the big hurly-burly elephant seal who weighs as much as a Ford F-150 truck and hauls out on a beach and spends the season there with a harem of females who scientists think are basically choosing him based on real estate. Like they roll up to a beach, the females, and they're like, you know what? This is a great place to raise pups. But scientists have long sort of used teaching elephant seals as this example of that for me reinforces sort of stereotypical gender roles. But if you look across mammals, as Kaya Tombak has done in her research, most mammals are bats and rodents. And many female bats are quite a bit larger than male bats. And many rodents have no sexual dimorphism. And they all have pretty different mating rituals, possibly as a result. And so that's a little bit what I was talking about with the elephant seals is like we tell these stories and we reinforce these stories and we only tell the story about the animals that fit the story. But if we go wider, like Kaya Tombak and her colleagues did, and look at the bigger range of animals available to us to tell stories about, the story changes. Are you able to hear in the background that Pudge has chosen this moment to harangue my daughter?
No.
Okay, good. I'll leave them to it.
Fun. Hear things that felt fun at some point.
Great.
When you were in the midst of the dregs of this. Menopause, hyenas, and insects. Eugenics and all this. Insects are kink lords. Cut penises and gynarchy. Co-evolution is a key in feminist biology.
Fair play.
Parents' to-do list. Vagina cabinet. Dolphin clit. Gay dolphins. Yep. These are the primary relationships of their adult lives.
That's right.
Fact checking the art. Is that dick really that big?
Well, and that was a really fun part of making a comic book that is a science book that got fact checked. I'm trying to remember really funny examples with my beloved fact checker, Diane Kelly, who is a penis expert. But she would write to me these amazing things of like, just having the actual sketches fact checked by someone was such a funny part of the process where she would sort of be like, I think that this vagina needs to be a slightly different color, or like, you know, and she and I did cool work together where there are some papers from the 60s and 70s that I was trying to illustrate where there weren't photos of the methodology like there are today. There's a lot of videos of stuff like the termites. There's video online of like the like little vacuum that they use to suck up one of the partners. And then they found the other partner exhibits certain gendered behaviors based on that, but they switch gender roles if needed. But she would help me sort of puzzle out, like, what does the enclosure look like in this particular experiment where we couldn't see photos? What does the basically like monkey dildo that was used to stimulate the monkey look like? Like figuring out with a fact checker what the visuals would be the most accurate was really fun.
Almost done with these notes. I am done
Right,
with these
I
notes.
love
That's it. I want to talk about, can we talk about, can we briefly talk about comics as it relates to can you describe our comics community?
Yes.
A shout out to our graphic memoir cohort, long form cohort.
I joined maybe 5 years ago now and have been drawing comics exclusively not about me and only animals, research-based comics in your graphic memoir community ever since. And I don't know what I was in a few different classes with a few different of the people that are now in this like really congealed blood oath, lifelong till death do us part unit.
Yeah.
But I think it was like post-pandemic being on Zoom and a lot of people that at that time were doing comics on the side or really wanting to build and grow their comics practice. And having so much fun doing exercises with you and so much fun in class reading each other's work that we all started doing additional Zoom hangs, weekend Zoom hangs, some meeting up in real life, like Laura having me and Allison and Jamie. Someone else came out there to New Mexico.
Jillian.
Yes. Yeah. And then, of course, we went to the retreat together.
Yeah.
And karaoke together.
Yeah.
But those were like the first readers for multiple chapters of this book that I struggled with. They were the people that I would workshop a lot of big questions I was working with. You, Laura, Allison all read the book at different points and gave feedback. So it's become such a key like feedback space for me and place where I do generative work that I feel safe really sharing before it's ready for prime time.
What have you learned about comics as you went into this book process, either in our class or just on the ground, boots on the ground, or what? Because before you were doing comics before, but you're also doing a lot of illustrations.
Yeah, I kind of did like full page visual essays, I would say, before. I was not as much working inside panels. And to be frank, in post-production making this book, I made a pledge to myself going forward to like work much more in panels because the pages where I had been doing sort of the expansive full page visual essay, some of them did require rebuild in post, which was hard. And the panels were just so friendly to the post-production process because the format is set up and contained. I think the biggest thing that I learned in starting to work with you, in working with a lot of the exercises you've introduced me to, and in doing group exercises that are timed is like the glory of the timer. And I was not really a full-blown first draft comics person before starting to work with you and making the book. So the lesbian lays-in chapter of the book is an exercise I did in class. It's an exercise where I think like Linda Berry style, we like went through and did text first and then went through and added images. I think we had 1.5 minutes per frame. Mm-hmm. And there's something about starting to do those kinds of exercises and putting aside all of the preciousness and what it needs to look like and referencing the scientific image that helped me tell the clearest, best, simplest story of the science and like develop kind of characters, have these birds become characters, have the animals tell more of their story. And so that is something I really leaned into that as a science communicator was scary, was to have the animals talking to us is like very much not done in science writing for obvious reasons. But making that leap, I think, really came from comics world, comics community, and being a comics artist.
I mean, and one thing about our cohort of graphic memoir students is a lot of people are gender studies professors.
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Which is,
Yeah.
I think, kind of interesting because you're
Yeah.
coming at it from the science angle, and you have people that are thinking, thoughts from this feminist theory world, but that's separate but related. I want to know, speaking of you doing things in science that aren't always done in science through this book, tell me about your choice of including yourself as the narrator. And we can talk about your cats too, but I think it's pretty obvious why they're there. But tell me about what it meant to you to keep yourself visually in there as the narrator and our guide.
I really don't want to be in very much of an authoritative relationship with the reader. I want to be pals with the reader. I want the reader to come away from my book not thinking that I get science, but thinking that they get science. And it felt also very like in doing all this reading about feminist standpoint theory, which is embracing our positionality relative to how we see the world and what we learn from it and about it, which is this refutation of the claim of objectivity in science. It felt very feminist. Like I think of Mine Akubo and Citizen 13660 to put myself in and to own I have a perspective. I have a view. I'm going to have reactions. I'm going to filter things through that perspective. That felt more honest with the reader. And it felt more fun to tell the truth about the book, which was I'm on a big learning journey. Me and Ursula and Pudge are asking over 50 scientists questions, like multiple times a week. And I want you to come in that learning process with me. And as someone who learns by drawing, it felt fun to like really include them, the reader.
I love it. And of course, I love that your cats are there and they have a say. I think that this book is perfect as an illustrated book. I think it's perfect as a comic. There's so many things. I remember like you illustrating just like walls of vaginas, or you illustrating things that, yes, I want to see the diagram. And I want to see if somebody's talking about like a mold of a dolphin penis, like I want to see what's happened. It's interesting to see these scientists that are like really buttoned up, like big thinkers doing something that seems so profane on some level and just getting to see but it's very ordinary to them. It's very day to day, even though it's like scandalous.
My
dear fun juxtaposition.
Yeah. And I think that's part of why it's fun asking them questions, that maybe they aren't allowing themselves to wonder all the time of like, well, do they like it? Or, like what's happening? Because I think it's been funny to watch myself get kind of inoculated too, where I'll be talking to someone and be like, okay, so the dental silicone, right? She like plugs it up into the dead dolphin's vagina and then she pulls it out once it's ready and it's like a vagina popsicle. And so then they're jamming that, they're inflating the penis and then they're putting it all in formalin and then they're trying to twist it around and people are like, oh, I actually feel kind of, my friend Chris, I was on his podcast the other day and he finally like halfway through was like, this all actually does kind of make me uncomfortable. And I was like, thank you for telling me. I have no barometer for that at this point because I have been like, as I joke in the book, at lunch with Diane Kelly and Patricia Brennan, Diane Kelly, penis expert, Patricia Brennan, genital morphologist focused on female anatomy. We're at lunch and I was like, so how'd you two meet? And Diane was like, oh, I taught her how to inflate her first penis. And I was like, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Hold on a second. Something else I had highlighted was just the expression snail banging.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole filthy, filthy, filthy thing.
Do you have anything else to say about the intersection of comics and like thought and being rigorous in your science and it's still being a comic?
Yeah, there's two things about that. One is throughout my career, I have been utterly dumbfounded that I am sometimes the first person to draw something. I remember there was like a bacteriophage experiment where they had like innovated how to treat a virus with these like bacteriophages or these kind of like devices that like go onto the bacteria and they inject it with something and they like fix this thing. And I drew it for a comic and people were like, hey, thank you so much. That actually hasn't been visualized yet. And I was like, you guys, what? You know, it's been such a funny thing to be really trying to make public facing images about science, because I think that's not what scientists are trained to do necessarily. There's a whole field of science illustration, which is incredible work, but the kind of more comic-y or really public facing piece of it, you end up doing some discovery within that, right? So I'll often get in these longer term discussions with scientists where I'm like, thank you for the images you provided. They don't get at what I need to get at to draw this the way I need to. And that's always a fun conversation of going deeper with what actually happened or what do they actually think it looks like. And sometimes, and working with my fact checker on this too, taking leaps where it's like, this is what we think this might look like. So that's one piece of it that is fun. And then I think the other thing I definitely was thinking about in making this book and visualizing it is, you know, you taught me that I have to be thinking at all times of like, why is this a comic? And for me, also, that extends into a responsibility around why am I choosing to recirculate an image, especially if I'm talking about historic harms, historic racism, and attitudes about race that were embedded into images that were circulated at the time, some of which I do choose to re-illustrate or share in the book. I wanted to both get with myself and also have readers that were giving me feedback about why are we talking about this and redrawing this and sharing this. And so that was, I think, something that maybe comics makes different in this sense, in terms of, you know, the history of comparative anatomy is, if we're being honest about the eugenics in science, is kind of roots and methodological infancy and growth. And, you know, now today, comparative anatomy was in ways developed to map deviance onto the body and to map social hierarchy onto the body accordingly. And so really knowing why I was, if I'm going to draw all these dolphin vaginas and we're mapping all this behavior onto all these dolphin vaginas, we have to talk about how that was done in really dangerous ways historically. And so that's why I include those images. And once I know why, and it's not just shock value that's going to recreate harm carelessly, then we move forward.
Love that. I do have one more thing that I had highlighted, which I think is part of one of the points of your mission statement, if I may, which is we need to fix climate change so animals can fuck in peace.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Society to save, slap, and tickle. That's the mantra.
Well, that's so interesting that you bring it up, Perrin, because people could actually join the Society to Save, Slap, and Tickle on your website.
Yep, they sure can. And they can say the Society pledge, which is preferably done in the nude. And then, exactly.
What's the pledge? Will you say the pledge?
Okay, let me go find it.
Might have it close at hand.
Okay, here it is. On my honor, I promise that I will treat Earth like we are on a first date every day. I will do my best to protect sexual diversity as a form of biodiversity, whatever it costs me. I will savor Earth's eroticism and conserve critically endangered kink lords. This is the Society's salute.
Hear, hear.
And things that people can do
to
be in the Society is there's a body book club that has a reading guide that asks a lot of these sort of like self-reflective questions of like, did my mind get changed about what sex is from reading this? Did my mind expand around my understanding about how sex moves through bodies? What's something I'm repelled by? Let's talk about why. What's something I'm drawn to? That's an option, is a kind of guided book club. And then the other thing is the Society to Save, Slap, and Tickle, conserving critically endangered kink lords. I've pulled like 10 or 15 animals from the book that to me represent different habitats. And so if you're particularly in love with seahorses, there's links for conservation groups that are supporting them on the website. So you can go give a little bit of money to Project Seagrass. Or if you love anglerfish and their outrageous reproductive lifestyle, you can do some work to stop deep sea mining. So there's different options for people to like take this desire to let these animals bury their boners in peace once again on the website.
That's something I wrote down in my notes too, was about burying their boners. I just thought that was so beautiful. Okay, I have
Thank you
about
so much.
2 more things to talk to you about, and then if
Fantastic.
you have anything to say to me, I'm ready.
Right.
Okay. Or if you want to do a I don't think so, honey, think about it. If you have,
That?
I'll tell you. Well,
Okay.
it's stolen from Las Culturistas, where at the end of their episode, they have a
Yeah.
1-minute segment called I Don't Think So, Honey,
Yeah.
where they get to rant and rave about one thing from culture that drives them up the wall. But
Okay. Okay.
no pressure. Here's a question
I would
from,
love to do one.
okay. It's been a vegan I Don't Think So, Honey, which is like a little bit,
Ooh.
like charging extra for soy milk, charging extra for oat milk. I don't think so, honey. Whatever, but
Yeah. Okay.
go with God on this.
Okay.
Whatever,
Thank you.
be free.
Thank you.
Somebody asked, dear Perrin, is it really true cats have different looking kittens in a litter because they can have different fathers? If they only get impregnated by one cat, does that make a smaller litter? From Curious in Connecticut.
Ooh, Curious in Connecticut. So I don't know if this is the case for cats, but I do know that with many animals, they are having litters that have multiple fathers. And in tamarins, actually, females maintain harems of males. And the prevailing theory is that they always have twins because her many mates won't know whose is theirs. I don't know why they would, like, if she just had one baby, but
Yeah.
it's like they won't kill the baby. They'll assume, like, okay, it's twins. Probably I'm a father of one of them.
Could be mine.
And she never carries them anywhere. The males carry them everywhere for her, bring the babies to nurse, and then bring them away. In a lot of seabirds, when we talk about them being monogamous, they are having sex with everybody in the breeding colony, male and female, right? Like all the sexes. And the birds are raising litters with multiple fathers. Same with prairie voles. Like this is very frequent. So I don't want to say yes for cats because I haven't like specifically researched that fact, but I would assume so.
I love that for them.
Me too.
I don't remember the last thing I was going to ask you. I could really talk to you for 10,000 years.
Likewise.
You and I have we're both very concerned about animals.
Yeah.
We both love animals. Do you have any questions for me? Questions, comments, concerns before we do an I don't think so, honey?
What are you really thinking about animals right now? Like, what are you referenced something you've been watching a lot of the other day, and I don't remember what, but I know that like the tortoise
Survivor?
social world. No, it was an animal, like a specific type of animal video that you were really into right now.
Well, I said Survivor because I was watching it. I stopped watching Survivor because this is like reality contestants murdering beautiful sea creatures and animals in the places where they were filming a reality show made me nuts. Like I just saw them kill an octopus on an ancient episode and I was like, I just can't.
No.
I can't do it.
No.
Can't. I have to look away. Like I can't even look at it. What have I been watching? Well, I mean, like on TikTok, of course. Oh,
yes.
Howie the crab who could speak ASL. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Here, let me screen share. Let me screen share. And if anybody is, now you might have something to say about this. Okay. There's Howie wearing a birthday hat, holding a hand of a human being. This is an incentive for people to go watch this episode on YouTube, I guess. Okay, so this lady, I can't remember how she got this crab. R.I.P. He's dead. She's dead now. Howie's dead.
Okay.
By natural causes. This lady rescues a crab, does a ton of research, has to build some of her own research because like these crabs maybe aren't meant for people to keep them living for billions of years, for tons of years. Anyway, she anthropomorphizes the hell out of this crab. Howie's wearing hats. The lady has the most annoying voice. No offense to her, but there's a lot of like, Howie, you want a piece of and the crab is signing more food, more. Like she taught it like the baby signs basically of like food and yes, aren't. Howie, so charismatic. What you would call a charismatic animal. Charismatic crab, so cute, wearing weird. Anyway, Howie dies. Somebody brings her a different crab to save. And this crab is a lot less cute, a lot less charismatic. This crab's got shell rot. She's fucked up. She's been traumatized. Like this lady is still, she's like, honey, look, it's playtime. And she's putting this kind of fugly crab in like a ball pit of like little foamy, like, and it's wearing a hat and it's so wild. You're like, because I learned from Howie, I was like, you know, I had a moment of like, oh, crab consciousness.
Yep.
Crabs are having more complicated thoughts than I would think as someone who's so different from a crab.
Yeah.
They're having thoughts, you know, like I would think a crab's thoughts were really different from mine, but I was seeing our commonalities.
Yeah.
New crab, not totally feeling that, but
No,
you're watching anyway.
yeah, you've got to. You've got to find out how baby sister does.
Yeah. What's her name? Her name's Winnie, as
Winnie.
voted on by TikTok. And then, of course, I went to Reddit where people were trying to poke holes in her science, and I felt defensive.
Right.
I was like, you don't know what it's like to have to research how to keep a crab alive. You don't know.
Exactly. Well, this was the thing. I was artist in resident at the New York Aquarium.
Yes.
Last fall, and I have a lot of questions and concerns about animals in captivity, and they only have marine mammals there. They have seals and sea lions that either were seized from illegal wildlife trade or like illegal home aquariums. A lot of times people will, some of their sharks came from a guy in New York's and like on Staten Island who called like wildlife, not like police, but sort of, and was basically like, look, I'm in over my head with this shark.
I'll say.
Can I give it to you? And they were like, yeah, it'll be a seizure. But they called the New York Aquarium and that's how it wound up there. Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready for it? I don't think so, honey.
Yeah, my two are connected though. I want to tell you what I watch compulsively.
Please.
And then I'll segue. What I watch on YouTube is Ocean Conservancy Namibia. And they are cutting the fishing line off of entangled sea lions and sea lion pups. And it's just like a tiny moment of like, cool, we clipped it off. We got it off. It's free. It can now swim freely. You know what I mean? It's just like one seal at a time fixing it. And it's so soothing. I don't think so, honey.
Can I ask you a heavy question when you're done with your I don't think so, honey?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to have to time you. You have to start. I'm going to time you. And you're going to start by saying, I don't think so, honey, blank.
Okay.
Okay, ready? We love working with a timer together. Perrin, Roosevelt Ireland. Your time starts now.
I don't think so, honey. Whatever the car commercial is, where they drive a small child to a marine reserve where there are federally protected sea lions that their toddler interacts with and gifts to a sea lion, a stuffed sea lion, who then takes it as their own and like waddles away on the beach to sell a car. It's trash. The boy is giving trash. That sea lion, what happened to their offspring? How many seconds did I have?
You have a minute total. You're at 43.
Their parents are so pleased with themselves that they've just had their child be exposed to a marine predator that is also federally protected and not to be tampered with, and that their child gave it trash that's going to get washed into the ocean with microplastics.
That's your time. Thank you, Perry.
I hate it so much I lose my mind. It plays during basketball games.
I think we could really share some animal fury.
Yeah, I'm
about all
ready.
kinds of things.
Uh-huh.
Okay, my last question for you, it's a little bit of a deeper question. I know that you currently or at some points have had some kind of relationship to a meditation practice or a sense of spiritual, how do you reach calmness kind of practice.
Mm-hmm.
When you are learning about animal conservation. When you're thinking about animal conservation, you're hearing about horrible things happening to animals in their habitats. How do you keep going? What do you do with those hard feelings? How do you keep living?
I cry a lot. The tears are endless. There's so much grief. I think that's a really appropriate response. And part of the way that Joanna Macy, who is a Buddhist teacher and scholar and generated something called The Work That Reconnects, one of the things she taught me is that like being with my pain for the world is a really important step in then being able to move out from that pain and be contributing and generative towards solutions. So I do cry a lot. And I have found that practices in my local environment, like I am an open water swimmer at Coney Island. I go bird watching, especially during the spring migration through New York City, is like really robust. Sometimes I'll go to a community garden, like finding the nature nerds where I live and finding out what they're doing and what they care about. Like I graduated from the New York Sanitation Foundation's Trash Academy this winter. And
Congratulations.
thank you. You can adopt a corner. Like you can adopt a grate. What's that? You know, the like overflow grate.
Yeah.
And decide to beautify it for yourself. And I think when it feels so big and so painful, honestly, besides calling Congress, which I do constantly about many issues, and the only ones my senators write me back about are public lands, because that's the only ones they want to hear about or change. I call my reps, and I also try to be with other people in my city that care about animals like I do. It's a really core resilience tool for me to go birding, go swimming in the ocean, to go to the Natural History Museum of the York Aquarium, which is a different vibe.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the meditation piece is key too. I haven't been doing as much as I launched book tour.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love this. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at experiment, my name in the middle of the word experiment. I'm on Substack on Thirsty Science.
Ooh.
I have an in-print newsletter that goes out once a month, and you can find that on Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my non-to-internet is experiment.
And also,
So check me down there. And I hula hoop on Instagram and tell animal stories. And I'm also going on book tour. So I'm going out west to Powell's Books July 7th. And Science on Tap in Vancouver, Washington, July 8th, and Seattle Town Hall, July 9th, and Boulder Bookstore, July 14th.
Love it. Okay, everyone, go find Perrin. Perrin, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Nicole.
What a delight.
It was so fun.
Sagittarian Matters is hosted and produced by me, Nicole J. Georges, with help from Ponyo Georges. Our executive producer is Chris Sutton, and our editor is Shauna Polly. Carolyn Pennypacker Riggs composed and performed our theme music. Please leave your 5-star reviews for us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, and find us on Instagram at Sagittarian Matters. You can support our show on Patreon, patreon.com/Nicole J. Georges. Thank you for your support. See you next time.
Perrin, you have actually reached a great milestone, which is you've reached the end of mansplaining.
That's right. It's a historic event. I think that it should be international news. We hit peak mansplain last week. I was talking about a t-shirt. There's merch on my website for the book, and I made an I have a clit collage tee of all the animals that declare their possession of a clitoris in the book. And I made a joke and called the plural of clitoris, clitori. And a gent let me know in the comments, I quote, actually, clitoris is a third declension noun, so the plural is clitors.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well,
You're welcome. You're quite welcome.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we hit it.